Lynn read her favorite book about beastmen until late at night and eventually fell into a deep sleep. In her sleep, the girl tries to feel the blanket, not understanding why it is so cold and hard to sleep. Waking up, Lynn rubs her eyes and decides that she must have fallen out of bed. Looking around and not recognizing her room, the girl tries to understand where she is and how she ended up here. Lynn looks in surprise at the strange clothes that clearly do not belong to her. Suddenly, the girl notices abrasions on her legs, which begin to hurt noticeably. Suddenly, women's voices are heard very close, saying with confidence that the girl's fainting was clearly fake. The girl in tiger skin states that everything was done solely to attract the attention of the Lion Man. Her friend agrees that the deer Lynn is simply disgusting. Lynn is amazed to hear familiar names and tries to figure out what is really going on. The girl remembers how her friend for a long time insisted that she read a book in which the main character was also named Lynn. According to reviews from the internet, the deer Lynn is presented in the book as an evil manipulator who will ultimately die tragically. The girl realizes with horror that the scene taking place now completely coincides with the plot of the novel. It dawns on Lynn that by some miracle, she not only ended up in the book, but moved into the body of the manipulative deer Lynn. One of the girls grabs Lynn by the neck and angrily says that if she sees the deer next to the lion Meng again, she will break off her horns. Lynn understands that until he fully understands the situation, it is better not to get involved in conflicts. The girl is so confused that she doesn't see anything around her and crashes into someone with all her might. Lev Meng grabs Lynn's hand and says with a grin that she continues to be attracted to him. The girl, in horror, tries to escape from the lion's embrace, not understanding what caused his such ardent interest. Meng ironically declares that he doesn't know where the little deer got the courage to openly refuse him. Lynn realizes that the young man is too strong for her to break free and screams in despair and fear. Suddenly, magical lightning begins to sparkle around the cave where the events are taking place. The girls say with fear that only a 4th-level warrior, the same as the lion Meng, could do this. The lion pushes the doe away. He felt the power emanating from the uninvited guest. Lynn despairingly does not understand what the author was thinking about. What kind of love could there be with such a rude and uncultured savage? The serpent Yen appears in front of the cave. The lion angrily asks why he came. The snake coldly says that his partner is here, for whom he came. Lynn, cowering in fear, hopes that the young man has come to save her. Ian declares that the doe is his partner, and he will take her anyway. Leaning towards Lynn, the snake says that if Meng wants to stop him, then he should think carefully. Lev is annoyed and thinks that even though the doe is unique, he is not ready to fight Ian. The snake picks up Lynn in his arms and fiercely advises her not to move. Now they will leave here. Seeing that the snake is running away, Maine confidently shouts after him that next time he will not let the guy go so easily. The snake runs, but Lynn cannot take his eyes off him, thinking that the main character is stunningly handsome. Looking at the girl, Ian calmly says that if she looks at him again, he will kill her. Realizing that the girl didn't believe him, the snake adds that if he doesn't kill, he will definitely hurt. Once in Ian's cave, the girl says that now they are safe and he can let her go. The snake prepares a place for Lynn, and she is surprised to think that the guy is carefully making the bed for her. Ian carefully lays the girl down and says that if she overestimates her strength, she will die. Lynn enthusiastically accepts such care. No one has ever done anything like this for her. Ian examines the doe's legs and asks in bewilderment how she could have gotten so many wounds so easily. Examining the huge bruise on the girl's leg, the snake says with a grin that she is clearly not a rival to Maine's pussies. Lynn thinks that although the snake is beautiful, it is clearly not a doctor, because it hurts the girl very much. Suddenly, Ian begins to gently and carefully blow on the girl's abrasions. Lynn is very embarrassed by such a pleasant but strange treatment, and frightened by such closeness, asks the guy to let her go. The snake does not understand the doe's reaction, why she is embarrassed if she is his girlfriend. The guy presses the girl to the bed and says that he is in a bad mood, and he cannot guarantee that he will not do anything to Lynn. The deer looks intently at the snake and thinks that it is even more beautiful up close. Lynn finally believed that she had moved into the book, into the body of a two-faced heroine with the same name as hers. The handsome man who sits in front of her is the main character of the novel, the snake Ian. In the story, Ian is sharp-tongued but soft-hearted and has a touching and unshakable love for the deer Lin. The girl recalls that throughout the story, many young girls fell in love with the snake, but he was adamant. According to Lin, the novel became incredibly popular not because of the romantic line. It was Ian's reckless love for his chosen one that captivated the girl. Looking at the snake, Lin thinks with delight that he is her favorite character in the book. The girl clings to the snake and does not understand how her predecessor could deceive him and run away, although she spent the winter with him and promised to become his companion. Booklin constantly seduced other men so that at the right time she would throw the kite and receive the protection of another. As a result, the doe abandoned Ian and went to another tribe, despite the fact that they had been together all their lives. In the end, due to her duplicity, the doe is abandoned by her tribe and dies. Although Ian understood that he was being used, his heart was broken. The girl doesn't want to be the same bitch as her predecessor. She wants to atone for her sins before the snake, and first decides to explain her departure to Maine. Lin tells the young man that she had a good reason for going to see the lion Meng. The snake furiously replies that if the doe says that name again, the guy will help her shut up. Ian brings his face closer to Lin's, and the girl is surprised to notice that her heart is beating wildly. In the middle of the clearing, the tribe members are excitedly discussing that the young elder has been poisoned. They need to go to the snake and ask for help. Nick lies on the ground, writhing in pain, unable to say a word. The boy runs as fast as he can to Ian's cave and calls him loudly. The little mouse says that everyone was hunting, and the young elder was wounded, and now the tribe is asking for help from the snake. Ian heads for the exit without any questions and orders the boy to take him to Nick. Turning around, the guy tells Lin that if she goes to Maine again, she knows what he will do to her. Suddenly, the young man takes a bag and throws it to the deer. She miraculously managed to catch it. The snake tells Lin that the bag contains herbs and advises her to treat the wounds. The girl examines her abrasions and understands that it is difficult to live in a world in which there are no painkillers. Suddenly, a strange creature appears in front of the girl and says that he is Baby 2, a little helper of her system. The girl happily remembers that the displaced people have their own system with assistants. The girl asks Little 2 if he can help her relieve the pain. 2 scans the surrounding objects and says that an effective painkiller is in the bag that the snake gave the girl. The assistant says that this herb relieves pain. You need to apply it to the wound. First, you will feel heat, and then the pain will go away. Having received a portion of admiration from the girl, 2 bitterly notes that he is still small and can only search once a day. Suddenly, Ian appears in the cave. The girl quickly hides the assistant behind her back and asks how serious Nick's wound is. The snake says that the young elder was bitten by a spider, and the poison needs to be neutralized as soon as possible. The young man takes a bag of herbs and admits that he knows little about poisons, but will act based on his capabilities. 2 flies out from behind Lin and says that to neutralize the poison, you need to use Chinese violet. 2 tells the excited deer that no one can see him except his owner. Lin decides to use the assistant's knowledge and tells the snake that he knows how to help the young elder Nick. The little mouse says in confusion that he didn't know about Lin the deer's passion for medicinal herbs. Ignoring the boy, Lin takes a Chinese violet from the bag and tells Ian that it will help with the bite. The boy asks if the deer is sure of this. The young elder of the tribe has been poisoned and his life cannot be risked. Serpent Yen hugs Lin tenderly and tells her that he trusts her advice completely. The snake prepares a decoction of Chinese violet and feeds it to the young elder. Clan Elder Sean thanks Ian for saving his son and says that he now owes the guy. The snake says that it was not he, but the deer Lin who discovered the antidote, and you need to thank her. The deer sheepishly says that saving Nick is her responsibility as a representative of the clan. The girls standing on the side angrily say that the deer Lin is only capable of attracting men, and certainly not healing. The girl is upset and realizes how bad her predecessor was, since now no one believes in her good deeds. Suddenly, the elder rudely kicks one of the girls and says that no one is allowed to gossip about the snake's bride, and demands the girl to apologize. Sean understands that their entire clan is thriving thanks to Ian, and under no circumstances should they spoil their relationship with him. The girl reluctantly approaches Lin and, looking at the elder, apologizes through gritted teeth. The deer accepts the apology, deciding once again not to get involved in the conflict and not to further spoil her reputation. Sean drags the girl by the scruff of the neck, promising that at home he will definitely teach her a lesson about chatter. A little later, Ian tells Lynn that she had every right to be angry with the girl for her rudeness. The snake affectionately strokes the girl's cheek and says that he will always be on her side, regardless of the circumstances. Lynn thinks about how lucky the previous owner of the body was to be the object of such favor. The deer thoughtfully says that before she didn't take other people's feelings into account at all, and asks why this didn't push the young man away. Ian looks carefully at the girl and thinks that they were destined to be together. From early childhood, the boy and girl never separated for almost a minute. Lynn illuminated the people around her with her light, like a little sun. Ian, on the contrary, was constantly attacked. He was called a cold-blooded foundling. The deer always rushed with rage at those who offended her friend, fearlessly getting into fights. Over time, the boy realized that all he needed from this life was a little warmth radiated by the girl. Since then, Ian decided that he must retain these crumbs of warmth by any means necessary. But when the tribe later lost its sacrifices, Lynn became completely different, as if she had been replaced. The girl constantly flirted with other guys and did not hesitate to say that she had snakes under her heel. Recalling their entire history, the young man admits to Lynn that she was not always like this. Suddenly, the girl decisively declares that she will never be so disgusting again. Lynn thinks that she is a completely different person, and the actions of the former deer have nothing to do with her. Since, by the will of fate, a girl ended up in this world, she should no longer be a two-faced bitch that everyone hates. The deer thanks the snake for always treating her nonsense with patience and understanding, but from now on, she will change. The girl admits that she needs to grow up, and she will walk this path herself step by step. Ian hugs the doe and thinks that finally the old Lynn has returned, and he will protect and look after her. Nick gradually comes to his senses and tries to open his eyes. The young man slowly sits down and says in bewilderment that he was bitten by a poisonous spider. How could he survive? The little mouse tells Nick that, as surprising as it may be, the young man is alive thanks to the deer Lynn. The young elder shouts in anger that this is simply impossible. The girl has started another game in an attempt to seduce him. Yen and Lynn are standing calmly at the entrance to the cave and talking quietly, when suddenly a menacing roar is heard. Nick appears in front of the young people, and the doe anxiously asks why he got up. After all, so little time has passed. The young elder shouts loudly so that the deer Lynn does not try to pretend to be innocent. The guy warns Ian, saying that Lynn tried to seduce him several times. Nick remembers how the doe constantly hovered around him, trying to attract attention. Lynn remembers in horror that in the book, the doe actually tried to seduce Nick for some time when she could no longer contain the lion man. The elder says that he will not believe that the girl saved him, without expecting anything in return, and demands to state his conditions. Ian covers the girl with himself and angrily says that it is inappropriate to interrogate his fiancée at the entrance to his own cave. Turning to Lynn, the serpent challenges her to come up with a perfect excuse for her behavior. The snake invites the girl to tell the second elder why she did not give him passage. The deer understands that she must come up with a way to finally cut off the past of the previous owner of the body from her future life. Having not come up with anything better, the girl happily reports that her eyesight had failed her before. Lynn says that she previously had her eye on Nick because she was confused about him. But now there's nothing like that in her thoughts, and in general, it's time for her and Ian to start stocking up for the winter. Nick is surprised that Lynn had never thought about supplies before. She was only interested in food and flirting with the men of the tribe. The deer says that she used to think too narrowly, but now she only thinks about how to live the winter in contentment and without losses. In the book, the deer lived with the snake just to survive the winter. But since Lynn is a modern girl, she must survive in this world and help everyone else survive. Nick looks at the doe strangely and cannot believe that she has changed so much in just one day. The snake has no doubts about the girl's sincerity. He always believes her. Lynn happily tells Nick that he will no longer have to worry about the girl's immature thoughts. The elder thinks that he should be glad that he got rid of the obsessive pestering. but he understands that for some reason he feels sad. Nick shakes his head and tries to convince himself that this is all just another way to get his attention. After a while, Lin sits on Ian's lap and suspiciously asks why he looks so happy. The guy kisses the girl on the shoulder and says that he is very glad that Lin refused the second elder, and he, in turn, will help the deer carry out all her plans. Lin is afraid to truly fall in love with Ian. In 2 months, the main character of the novel should appear, and absolutely everyone's attention will be focused on her. The girl remembers with sadness that at the end of the book, Ian will be destined to remain with the main character. When the heroine appears, the snake will treat her as well as Lin, and this threatens with dire consequences. The old Lin, who has spoiled everyone, will harm the main character and will ultimately be unanimously sentenced to death. The girl understands that the death of the doe will be the culmination of general discontent, and her injury will only serve as a trigger. Ian notices that the girl is trembling and carefully asks if she is cold, knowing nothing about the true cause of the nervous trembling. Suddenly, Lin turns to the guy and asks him to take her to the mountains to collect medicinal herbs. Walking through the forest, Lin thinks that in winter the tribe lacks food and medicinal herbs. The surest way to change the attitude of the beast people towards themselves is to do something useful. The girl was so lost in thought that if Ian had not held the branch, she would have hit the deer hard in the face. The snake asks Lin in surprise why she asked him to take her to the mountains at night, because it could be dangerous here. The deer replies that they seriously need to start preparing for winter. Lin quietly asks Little Two to scan the area for useful herbs. Two replies that ahead is a large area of thicket and a large wild goose nest. The deer tells the snake that she has found a lot of useful things and invites him to follow her. Suddenly, an angry wild goose attacks the young people. Ian miraculously manages to jump on Lin, protecting her from danger. Having flown through the bushes, the young people fall to the ground with all their might. Ian hugs Lin tightly to himself, protecting her from the blow, and he falls shoulder first onto the stone. Little Two sadly notices that the goose is guarding the eggs, and the young people have invaded her territory. The deer notices a painful grimace on the snake's face and anxiously asks if everything is okay with him. Ian, touched by the girl's concern, self-confidently replies that her male is not so easy to cripple. Lin says she doesn't want to feel guilty if the guy gets hurt because of her. The snake approaches Lin and says that she is his mate, which means that it is his direct responsibility to protect the girl. Suddenly, the young man leans down and gently but passionately begins to kiss the girl. Lin is very embarrassed and asks why the snake suddenly decided to kiss her. The young man says in confusion that the girl's look indicated that she herself wanted a kiss. Ian says with a grin that next time there is no need to look at him so soulfully if Lin doesn't want a kiss. The girl enthusiastically thinks that the snake is too good at flirting. The goatsen is secretly watching the couple and angrily wonders when this snake, which she really likes, managed to get close to the deer. Looking at her find, Lin realizes that the system did not deceive her. There really is a lot of water here. The snake grabs the deer in his arms and says that this grass is tasteless and the clan will simply throw it away. Ian says that if a girl wants to get food, he will take her to where there is a lot of it. The deer demands to be lowered to the ground and explains that she is collecting medicinal herbs, not food. The girl is embarrassed by the guy's proximity and decisively says that they need to get back to getting ready. The deer talks about the properties of the herb and says that if the tribe has this herb, then in winter they will not be afraid of diseases. Suddenly, Lin hears a strange sound and, frightened, clings to the snake. Looking behind the reeds, the girl sees the mating games of 2 huge tigers. Ian laughs and says that the girl can take the opportunity to watch this happen. Lin asks in bewilderment why she should watch tigers mate. Ian replies that in this way, one can learn about the habits of other animals. Pressing his lips close to the girl's ear, the snake whispers that holding the partner's neck is not a bad idea. This will prevent the couple from escaping. Pinning Lin to a tree, Yen says that the snake tribe is much more lustful than the beastmen. Once the snake finds a partner, he wants to be with her all the time. The deer is very embarrassed by such frank conversations. They are too unusual for her. The girl runs away embarrassed and thinks that the men of the beastman world express their feelings too directly. Lin may be a modern girl, But such talk is not for her. She needs to find a way to stay away from the tempting serpent. The next day, the girl wearily thinks that stone knives are very difficult to use for cutting herbs. Lin recalls that in the book, the tribe's philosophy of life is community ownership. The supplies that everyone collects belong to the tribe. Everything else is divided equally by the elder depending on each person's contribution to the common cause. The deer thinks that she is collecting Volodushka privately, but will it be private or public? The girl is minding her own business, but suddenly a mouse runs up to the cave. The boy says that the young patriarch asks everyone to hurry up and get food for this month. Nick hands the snake a large basket of assorted food and says that this is Ian's share for the month. Turning to Lin, the young elder hands her some apples and tells her that this is her share. Tigress sarcastically notes that Lin does not make any contribution to the tribe. She spends all her days next to men, creating nothing but problems. The deer thinks in confusion that all the supplies are not divided equally, but are distributed according to work. Yen approaches Lin, hands her his basket, and says that everything that belongs to him also belongs to his chosen one. Goat Sen, irritated, thinks that the snake obtained these supplies, risking his life, and is now ready to give them to a woman who does nothing. The girl asks the question whether it is normal for a person who does nothing to receive food along with everything else. The tigress agrees with the goat and says that if you can get food by clinging to men, then she will do the same. The girl takes the elder by the hand, gently rubs her cheek against him, and asks if he agrees with her. Tigress playfully raises her hand and says that she will not allow Lin the doe to eat the snake's food. Suddenly, Lin asks if these attacks will stop if she joins the gathering group. Nick and the tigress look at the deer in amazement. They clearly did not expect this. Lin happily announces that she has no experience in collecting food, but she will study hard and not let the clan down. Nick is amazed that for some reason the doe did not lose her temper after the tigress insulted her. The next day, Lin runs through the forest in horror and thinks that she managed to oversleep on her first day of work. Ian stops the girl and says that he won't be around, so the girl should be very careful. The snake says that if Lin doesn't want to go to work, then she doesn't have to go. The guy will support her anyway. Ian holds the doe tightly by the hand and leads her out onto the lawn where the rest of the gathering group has gathered. Deciding to show everyone his right to a partner, the snake passionately kisses the doe in front of everyone. The leader of the collection group says with displeasure that everyone is only waiting for Lin. The girl embarrassedly apologizes for being late. Before Ian can leave, Sen approaches him and asks if she can talk to the guy. The goat directly tells the young man that she likes him and offers to live together. Hearing the goat's sudden confession, Lin turns towards the young people in bewilderment. Ian pulls his hand away and says that he already has a partner, and he is not going to change anything. Sen angrily says that sooner or later the doe will have another male, but personally she only likes snakes. Suddenly, a tigress runs up to Lin, grabs her hand, and drags her away behind the gathering group, not allowing her to finish listening to the conversation. The girl looks anxiously at her boyfriend and wonders whether he will believe the goat or not. The deer is picking fruit, but all her thoughts are only about what is happening between Ian and Sen. The girl is thinking that she decided to avoid the guy's attention, which means she should be relieved to accept the appearance of her rival. But for some reason, she is very sad. A breathless Sen runs up to the group leader and asks for forgiveness for the delay. Lin notices the return of the goat, but cannot tell from her expression whether she was rejected or accepted. Sen finds mushrooms and happily thinks that she can make a delicious dinner today. She is one of the whole tribe who understands mushrooms. But the deer notices the goat's actions and shouts that these mushrooms are poisonous and cannot be collected. The goat shouts to the deer to mind her own business. Her friend Lola is sure that if the mushroom is not red, then it can be eaten. The deer picks up the mushroom and says that its poison does not kill a person immediately. It accumulates and death occurs in 3 to 4 days. In her previous life, Lin was very fond of reading science blogs, which came in handy now. Sen shouts in rage that the deer is talking complete nonsense. This simply cannot happen. The girl shouts that Lin is jealous of her, wants to set her up, and with all her strength pushes the deer standing on the edge of the abyss. The girl stumbles, falls into the abyss, and thinks with horror that she will die in a few moments. The deer desperately hopes that after the fall she will not die, but will return back to her world. Lin closed her eyes tightly in anticipation of a strong blow, but for some reason the blow never came. The girl opens her eyes and sees an adorable little leopard, who happily tells him that, as her mother said, during the first rut, her partner will fall into his arms. The boy presses Lin to the ground and says that heaven has sent him the most beautiful partner. The deer waves her hands in horror and shouts that the boy let her go. She is not his partner. Suddenly, the boy moves away from Lin and with wild melancholy quietly asks what he should do next. He can't handle it on his own. Timmy meets a doe and the girl tells the story of her fall. The girl sadly says that most likely the reason for this was the rivalry between her and the goat, and also the fact that Sen was caught picking poisonous mushrooms. Timmy declares that now he will protect his sister and no one will dare to hurt her again. The leopard again returns to his problem and asks the deer to help him with the rut at least once. The girl is simply in despair from Timmy's pressure and screams hopelessly, calling on the snake for help. Meanwhile, Ian, being at the other end of the forest, senses with some intuitive feeling that Lin needs help. Lola says with horror that Sen pushed the deer off the cliff. The goat makes an excuse that everything happened by accident. Sen begs Lola not to tell anyone anything, otherwise the elder will kick the girl out of the tribe and she will die. Suddenly, a snake appears next to the girls and threatens to tell him everything that happened. The girls are silent, and Ian roughly grabs the goat by the hand and demands to know what happened to the deer. Lola is afraid of the snake and immediately admits that Sen pushed Lin down the cliff. The goat covers her friend's mouth and shouts that there was an accident. The snake threateningly warns Sen that if Lin is hurt, then the goat will be in trouble. The goat is furious and thinks that she will make the snake Ian lie at her feet and beg for forgiveness. At the bottom of the cliff, Lin continues to push Timmy away and convince him that she is not his partner. The leopard cries and says that despite his inexperience, he will do everything to make the girl happy. The beast kneels in front of Lin and says that such a beautiful female can have several partners and asks her to choose him. The girl is tired of this whole situation. She decisively declares that she already has a partner and it's time for her to go. Suddenly, the boy looks soulfully at the doe, promises to be obedient and find another partner, just don't let his sister leave him. Lin succumbs to the leopard's trick and thinks that the boy is just a child, and if she leaves him alone, he may face danger. The doe makes Timmy promise that he will behave well and not pester Lin anymore. Timmy agrees to everything, but he thinks to himself that first he will become the girl's friend, and then, no matter what, he will achieve her. Lin extends her hand to the boy and invites him to go with her to her tribe. At this moment, a snake comes out onto the lawn and watches what is happening with slight bewilderment. Ian coldly asks the deer who is standing in front of her. The girl rushes to the snake with joy and relief, realizing that she is now saved. Ian hugs the doe and contemptuously asks what kind of puppy is standing next to her. Timmy cannot contain his rage. He shouts that he is not a puppy at all, but a grown man. The girl explains that the leopard saved her. If not for him, Lin would have fallen to death, and in gratitude she promised to take him to the tribe. Ian feels that the boy smells of an animal in rut, and he has intentions regarding the doe, so the snake firmly tells the girl that nothing will work out. Timmy looks at Ian and feels that he is facing a strong and powerful opponent. The boy humbly tells Lin that he is used to being alone, and if he suddenly encounters danger, he will cope. The boy asks the deer to help him. There are few suitable females left in the wild, and the leopard is afraid to be left alone. Ian feels that something is wrong. Ordinary male beastmen cannot have such a strong smell. Yen picks up Lin in his arms, says that she shouldn't think about anyone but him, and runs to the tribe. Timmy wants to follow the couple, but trips and falls to the ground. The leopard sadly says goodbye to his sister and hopes that they will meet again. Lin turns around and looks at the retreating silhouette of the boy and realizes that she feels very sorry for him. The girl understands that the snake doesn't like the guy, but still says that she wants to take him with her. Ian adamantly replies that the beastmen have good survival skills and the boy will not die. Lin continues to convince the guy that Timmy saved her and she wants to repay him in kind. After thinking a little, the snake says that only this time he will follow the girl's lead. The deer approaches the joyful leopard and says that they are taking him into the tribe. Ian decides that once they return to the clan, the boy will no longer see Lin. At the same moment, Timmy thinks that as soon as he gets into the tribe, he will do everything possible so that Lin is with him. The young people return to the clearing, and the tigress immediately attacks Lin and says that the girl accused the goat of collecting poisonous mushrooms. Ian intercepts the tigress's outstretched hand, but the girl screams indignantly that the poor goat wants to commit suicide because of the deer's attacks. Lin thinks in confusion that she did not have time to repay Sen for her fall, and she already wants to commit suicide. The assembled clansmen are horrified and say that Priest Wei has been poisoned and may die. Lola thinks in horror that Lin may be right, and the priest was poisoned by poisonous mushrooms. Sen shouts that the deerlin is trying to slander her and wants to run away. Nick orders to catch up with her. The elder approaches Lin and wants to hear an explanation about the slander towards the goat. The snake immediately comes to the girl's defense and tells Nick that his chosen one would never slander just like that. Lin thoughtfully sees that Wei has begun to hallucinate, and if something is not done urgently, the priest will die. The deer notices that there are pieces of mushrooms in the man's vomit, which means he really was poisoned by poisonous umbrellas. They bring Sen, and she says that she knows about Lin's hatred, but she just wanted to help the tribe, so she asks the girl to stop offending her. The goat's companion suddenly swings with the intention of avenging Sen, but suddenly someone intercepts his hand. Timmy holds the guy tightly and asks Lin threateningly, "Did he push her off the cliff?" The leopard says with quiet rage that he will kill anyone who offends his sister. Lin takes the leopard by the hand, asks him not to touch the goat, and tries to lead him aside. The deer explains to the perplexed boy that if he touches Sen, he will be expelled from the tribe. Timmy decides that if he can't kill the goat in front of everyone, then he will kill it when no one can see. Nick watches the leopard from the side and is surprised that a powerful aura emanates from the boy. Who is he? The deer tells the young elder that she did not slander the goat and can prove it. The girl wants to find the mushrooms that the priest ate and at the same time save him. Yen runs up and says that he brought lightly salted water, as Lin asked. The girl gratefully takes the bowl and asks the snake to help her raise the man. Suddenly, Timmy rushes to cut Ian off, ready to be the first to help. The snake pushes the boy aside and says that he can handle it himself because you can't force a guest to do something. Ian sits way down. Lin gets ready to give him some water, and Timmy hangs around and asks how he can help. The deer asks the leopard to find a hard stick that can be put in the priest's mouth. The girl took first aid courses and knows that in case of poisoning, first of all, you need to rinse your stomach. A joyful Timmy comes running and shouts to his sister that he has completed her order. Sen observes Lin's actions and tries to convince the younger elder that the doe is doing something strange. The girl, in feigned fear, says that suddenly Wei has a chance to get better, and the inept actions of the deer will lead to his death. Goat smirks and thinks that using the priest's death to get rid of Lin is a really good idea. Nick approaches the doe and asks if she can guarantee that her actions will help Wei. The girl admits that she cannot guarantee anything, but will do everything possible to save the priest. Lin says if anyone has other ideas, she's open to hearing them. The snake takes the doe by the hand and confidently says that if she wants to try, then she needs to act. Ian tells Nick that if Wei is not helped, he will die sooner or later. Understanding what the elder was thinking, the guy says that he will take responsibility to the priest's family. Nick accepts all the tribesmen's arguments and says that he allows everything possible to be done to save the man. After giving Wei a full bowl of salt water, Lin asks Timmy to get more. One of the clan members approaches Nick and says that at this rate there will be no salt left in the tribe, but the elder just brushes him off. After a while, Wei gets better and can sit up on his own. The priest turns his face to Nick and asks what is wrong with him, because he just saw a lot of little people dancing. The joyful doe says that Wei needs to be given something to drink, covered warmly and allowed to sleep. Then he will soon recover. Suddenly, girls run up to Lin and say that she is very smart. If not for her, the priest would already be dead. Another girl comes up to the deer and says that her grandmother is very sick, coughing a lot and losing weight. Lin replies that she will bring medicine from which you need to make a decoction and drink it. Then the girl's grandmother will quickly recover. Sen is simply furious because Wei was almost dead, but the doe somehow managed to save him. Lin approaches the elder and says that she now has proof that she was not lying. The deer points to the vomit in which mushrooms are clearly visible and says that all this was in Wei's body. Nick agrees that Wei was poisoned by mushrooms picked by a goat and wonders if past deaths were related to the same thing. The elder notices that Lin has really changed. Not only does she not pester him, but she also helps everyone. The girl says that if her innocence is proven, will the elder help restore justice? Furious, Lin says that the goat must answer for first pushing her off the cliff and then slandering her. Sen tries to justify herself and states that she did not throw the deer off the cliff. Ian says that he found Lin from the cliff, and Lola says that she personally saw everything. The goat understands that he won't be able to get away with it and says that everything happened by accident and the deer wasn't even wounded. Timmy intervenes in the conversation and says that if he had not caught Lin, she would have fallen to her death. Timmy and Sen turn into irreconcilable enemies, realizing that each will not leave each other a chance. The goat tries to make excuses for Nick, but he is no longer going to listen to her. The elder announces that from now on, the goat must bring 20 portions of food every day, and for 3 months, she will not receive anything from the general supplies. Nick says that if Sen doesn't agree, she can turn to his father, and he will punish her much more severely. The girl angrily turns to the deer and shouts, asking if she is happy now. Lin takes Ian's arm as she prepares to leave and says that yes, she's happy now. The goat shakes her fist in rage. The deer humiliated her, forced Nick to punish her, and she cannot forgive this. Nick looks at Sen and understands that the girl wants revenge, but now he is more concerned about another problem. The elder watches Timmy and thinks that it feels like his strength is on the same level as the snake. For some reason, the boy is trying with all his might to hide his strength from everyone, posing as an ordinary child. Nick thinks there aren't many beastmen roaming around outside, except for the group that nearly wiped out their tribe. If the boy has such power, is he related to that very group, and why did he come to their tribe? At the cave, Timmy doesn't want to let go of the deer, clinging to her leg. The boy says that he is used to sleeping in the open air, and even if he gets sick, he will be able to cure himself. With tears in his eyes, the leopard says that since Lin is not outside, he is afraid and begs the girl not to leave. Suddenly, snakes grab the boy by the neck and say that stray beastmen have been trained since childhood to survive in the wild. Ian throws Timmy aside and tells Lin not to let any males with hidden desires get close to her. The young people talk, touching each other tenderly, and an embarrassed Nick asks for forgiveness for the intrusion. The young elder says that he needs to talk to the Dolin. Nick feels that the snake's aura is very oppressive, but he needs to find someone with whom he can discuss the leopard's intentions. Lin leaves the cave with anxiety. She feels the snake's emotions and is afraid that in her absence, everything will end in a fight. At the same moment, Ian grabs Timmy by the throat, presses him against the wall, and says that he knows the habits of cats very well. The serpent says that if the boy dares to touch his woman again and leave his scent, he will kill him. Timmy is not afraid of the snake and says that female beastmen can have multiple partners. With a grin, the leopard asks why he doesn't kill the snake, and then Lin will belong to him. With a menacing roar, Ian squeezes the boy's throat harder and says that he is seeking his death. Timmy has become completely bold and says that relying only on his strength, Ian will not be able to hold Lin. The boy boldly declares that the snake cannot even kill him. The snake decides that he began their conversation too softly, and his huge fist flies straight into the boy's face. The young elder deftly catches a stone that fell from a cliff and asks Lin to be careful. Nick says that their tribe once lived here, but now only ruins remain. At that time, the tribe was going through difficult times. Lin was injured and was unconscious for 10 days, so she does not remember anything. The clan was suddenly attacked by wandering beastmen, and their old and experienced priest was killed. Only priests are able to awaken the strength and spirit of a warrior and animals. With such soldiers, the tribe will be powerful and begin to prosper. The wolf tribe was in cahoots with the wandering beast people. They not only captured the tribe, but also killed all the priests. The clan fled to the mountains and eventually settled where they live now. The beast people found a suitable place. Everyone was scared, but confidently followed their leader. The snake placed traps around the tribe. No one expected that the opponents would not go on the offensive, but would poison the water. Without a priest to stop the plague, Nick had to burn his people with his own hands. After all the events, a small clan with a population of less than 80 people remained from a tribe of thousands. Lin understands that the tribe faced mass extermination, but there was no mention of this in the novel. When the deer asks why Nick is telling her this, the elder replies that the leopard that Lin brought is from the wandering beast people. The young elder angrily says that if Timmy does something to harm his tribe, he won't just let him go. Nick demands that the girl tell him about their meeting in detail. Otherwise, he will be forced to treat her as an enemy. A girlfriend behind her feels rocks falling and a powerful roar is heard. Nick throws Lin over his shoulder and runs as fast as he can from the angry bear. Hiding in a nearby cave, the girl turns inside out, and Nick says that he didn't think that the ruins would be populated so quickly. The elder notices that everything is not all right with the doe. She irritably says that running upside down does not make her feel good. The elder sheepishly asks for forgiveness and says that he has never carried a woman in his arms before. Suddenly, the young elder covers Lin's mouth with his hand and orders her not to make any noise. But the bear heard the conversation and is trying to enter the cave to deal with the enemies. The man hugs Lin tightly and whispers that they will leave the cave a little later in case the beast is somewhere nearby. Suddenly, the doe pushes Nick away in embarrassment and tries to say something about Timmy. Nick hugs the girl close to him again and says that she needs to stay close, otherwise the bear will see them. Lin cuddles up to the guy, causing him embarrassment, and says that the meeting with the leopard was accidental. Now Nick jumps to the side, and Lin remembers that according to the plot, the guy was never in a relationship and swore to remain celibate for his partner. Near the serpent's cave, such passions are boiling that it seems that no stone will be left unturned. Timmy straddles Ian and smugly declares that he can kill him at any moment. The serpent growls that he will not allow someone with a dark past and unknown motives to be near Lin. Jumping sharply onto the boy, Ian says that even if the deer has another man, it will clearly not be a leopard. Lin, who has returned, finds him in the middle of a fight and reproachfully asks what is happening. At the insistence of the doe, the snake is very reluctant to let go of the stupid boy. The guy hugs the girl tightly and reproachfully asks why she is worried about him. Lin admits that she doesn't care about her opponent. She doesn't want the snake to fight, solely out of fear for him. Ian thinks with pleasure that no matter how much the boy tries to pity him, Lin will only ever worry about the snake. Suddenly, Timmy comes up and admits that Ian didn't want to fight him. The boy was the first to challenge him. When Lin asks why the leopard provoked the snake, Timmy innocently replies that he did not allow him to stay with the girl. The boy admits that Lin is the only person who treats him well, never beat him, and gave him a roof over his head. Nick says that despite the boy's wishes, their tribe will never accept a wandering beastman with an unknown past. The elder notices that a couple of days ago, 2 tramps were sniffing around the tribe, and if the boy explains why he came, Nick will allow him to stay. Timmy gets lost for the first time and mutters something incoherently in response. The stranger watches as Nick tries to understand why Timmy is hesitant to answer. Alligator Fung grinningly thinks that the head was right. If the traitor Timmy escapes, he will be very easy to catch. An alligator runs out from behind a tree with the intention of attacking, holding a knife in its hands. Fung jumps out in front of the young people. The snake immediately covers Lin. The leopard is horrified to recognize the alligator. Nick sees that it is one of the beastmen who killed his people. The elder orders the enemy to be captured. Ian and Timmy immediately rush to the attack. The alligator jumps back with lightning speed, and the guys crash into each other. Suddenly, Fung grabs the doe, puts a knife to her throat, and orders everyone to stand still and not move. Timmy screams with fear and rage for Feng to let the girl go. Nick realizes that the boy is somehow connected to a tribe of wandering beastmen. The leopard says that he did nothing wrong. The alligator advises Timmy not to explain anything, because for everyone, he will remain a wandering beastman. Fung presses the knife harder on Lin's neck, and blood appears at the sight. The snake, in a rage, demands to release the deer. He thinks that if it were not for the leopard, Lin would be safe. The alligator invites Timmy to leave with him. Then he will give him the girl, and she will become his partner. If the boy refuses, he will simply kill the deer. Malky says doomedly that if Faye lets the girl go, he will go with him. Timmy knows that if he returns back, everything will become even worse than it was, and he will have to lead a not very noble lifestyle. The girl looks at the leopard with concern, but the boy calms her down and says that he will be fine. Lin understands that the wandering beastmen are cruel, and even if Timmy goes with the alligator, he will still kill her. Suddenly, the doe notices the bear in the bushes that recently attacked her and Nick. Lin comes up with the only idea that will help her escape. The girl begins to scream loudly, causing confusion in the alligator. A huge bear jumps out of the bushes and practically knocks Faye off his feet with his menacing roar. Timmy and Ian look at each other and without words understand that right now they need to attack. Leopard, snake, and bear attack the alligator from 3 sides. Dodging Ian's powerful fist, the alligator frames Lin and tells the guy that his blow could be fatal for the deer. Suddenly, a bear stands up behind Faye at full height and raises his paw. The alligator realizes that together with Lin, he will not be able to escape from the enraged beast. Faye can't think of anything better and throws the girl straight into the clutches of the predator. Lin realizes that she will not be able to escape. Timmy and Ian scream in horror, not having time to rush to her aid. But to everyone's surprise, the bear freezes in place and looks at Lin in surprise, not understanding why the prey itself came into his paws. Suddenly, a young elder flies straight towards the bear, making a powerful jump. With a powerful blow, Nick knocks the predator to the ground, thus giving Lin time to escape. The guy picks up the deer, who is collapsing from fear, and carefully asks if everything is okay with her. The bear, realizing that there are too many strong rivals, runs away in shame. Nick examines the wound on the doe's neck and is suddenly embarrassed by the proximity of the doe. Suddenly, Lin notices that the guy defeated the bear quite easily and asks why they ran away last time. The young man is lost, mutters something in his own defense, and eventually admits that he just wanted to stay with the girl in a calm environment. Timmy and Ian hold their fallen enemy and seethe with rage that he almost hurt the doe. Immediately, the snake attacks the leopard with accusations that everything happened because of him, and another skirmish begins between the guys. The snake affectionately hugs the deer and asks with concern how badly she is injured. Ian kisses the girl and says that he should have left her in the cave where she would be safe. Lin assures the snake that everything is fine with her, and the guy is not to blame for what happened. Then Ian insists that he also needs a thorough examination. Lin indignantly says that she will examine the guy as soon as they return home, but now there are more important things to do. Nick watches the young couple and sadly realizes that he is jealous of the snake. The young elder shakes his head and thinks that once they deal with the enemies, he will certainly find a mate. Nick approaches the alligator that Timmy is holding and asks for what purpose he attacked them and what kind of relationship he has with the leopard. Fung gloatingly says that the leopard Timmy is his accomplice, specially sent into the tribe. The alligator says that the boy snuck into the tribe only to finish what he started, and he was going to kidnap the girl. Timmy screams in rage that Faye is lying, and if it weren't for what the alligator did, the boy wouldn't be here. The leopard looks at Lin longingly and begs the girl to believe his words. Nick demands proof. No one in the tribe will accept someone who has harmed the clan. The elder leans sharply towards the boy and says that without proof, the tribe will do everything possible to take revenge on him. Timmy looks at the doe, and she asks the boy to tell the whole truth. The boy begins to say that he is indeed one of the wandering beast people, but he did not end up there of his own free will. For as long as Timmy can remember, he has wandered with this tribe of wandering beastmen. All the children had fathers, but the boy did not know his own. Her mother was taken to this tribe for a very specific purpose. Mom always told Timmy that if he was obedient, he could leave this terrible tribe. But one day, the alligator greeted the boy into the cave where his mother had been dragged before. She lay on the floor and did not move. Timmy sat in horror over his mother's body, and Faye said that he should go with him to the head of the clan. The boy broke free and ran. Of all he remembers only the long road and the desire to never again meet with those who killed his mother. After several days of wandering, the boy came across a cave in which he found an animal magic stone. Without knowing what he was doing, Timmy gained the power of a divine beast and became a 4th-level warrior. From that day on, only one goal appeared in the boy's soul called revenge. One day the boy met the head of a tribe of wandering beast people. The leader transformed into a leopard and attacked Timmy. The boy was so amazed that the head of the clan also took the form of a leopard that he missed the blow. In those dark days of imprisonment, when Timmy was ready to give up, he remembered his revenge again and again. The day the leopard was able to escape turned out to be the day he met Lin, who was the only one of all who treated him kindly. Timmy approaches Lin and sadly says that he really wants to stay with his sister and become a family to her. The alligator, hearing these words, shouts in rage that since Timmy's mother was their slave, then the boy belongs to them. Faye screams that the boy is a pathetic street kid who doesn't deserve to be loved. Yen runs up to Faye from behind and gives him a powerful slap, noticing that the alligator is talking too much. The snake says that there is an abandoned cave not far from his house, and if Timmy wants, he can move there. Lin notes that the boy's story touched the snake to the core, and although he continues to make fun of him, his attitude towards Timmy has noticeably changed. Nick tells the deer that he allows the boy to stay in the tribe, and he is also entitled to a reward for capturing the wandering animal, and the girl can always rely on his protection. Lin thanks the elder, but says that she will not bother him. She has Yen for protection. Nick sadly thinks that the doe did not take advantage of his offer, and thinks that the guy probably lacks initiative. Ian leads Timmy to his new cave, but the boy's expression is clearly displeased. The leopard turns and asks how far it is from this cave to Sister Lin's house. Ian points to huge wild bamboo thickets and says that you just need to get through them. The snake grabs the guy by the neck and menacingly warns that if Timmy bothers him and the doe, he will drive him out of the cave. The young people head towards the house, but Lin notices that Ian is angry about something. The deer is sure that the boy's story reminded the snake of his own difficult childhood. Lin decides that music is the best cure for sadness and tries to break the bamboo. Looking at the torment of the deer, the snake decides to help and in one movement breaks off the required piece of the stem. Lin cryptically says that special holes still need to be made in the bamboo. Ian doesn't understand why this is necessary, but if his partner asks, then he has to do it. The girl begins to play a strange but beautiful melody on the flute. The young man freezes with delight. Ian is so overwhelmed with emotion that he comes up and, interrupting Lin's session, begins to passionately kiss the girl. Suddenly, the snake pulls away from the doe and says that he wants to have a cub with her. Lin is simply shocked by the guy's confession and wonders what he can do to her if she refuses. Ian picks up Lin and says they need to go home and do a couple's ceremony. The deer tries to explain to the snake that she is still too young to get married, and this was not at all part of her plans. Ian sadly says that the girl has the lion Mung, Elder Nick, and now the leopard has appeared, so she just doesn't want to be his partner. Lin selflessly convinces that she never thought of being with someone other than a snake, but the guy demands proof. The guy says that he will only accept consent as evidence, and the girl answers yes. Realizing that the snake right now wants to start procreation, Lin says that she has a sharp stomachache, and Ian immediately decides to take her home, not noticing that the flute remained lying on the ground. Nick heard wonderful music in the forest and thinks that only a priest can play so beautifully. Deciding that a priest is awakening in their tribe, the elder wants to find the one who played the flute. Having made his way through the bamboo, the guy is surprised to see the goat Sen, who is holding a flute in her hands. The goat says that she was the one playing, and asks if Nick will cancel his punishment if the sacred skills awaken in her. Having carried Lin to the cave, Ian quickly runs away to the priest for medicine for the stomach, and Timmy comes to Lin. The deer asks the boy to catch up with the snake and not allow him to disturb the priest. The leopard grabs the girl in his arms and says that he doesn't know where the doctor's house is, and it would be better if the girl shows him the way. Ian runs out into the center of the settlement and sees a crowd of people happily discussing that Sen will soon become the most honorable in their tribe. The goat approaches the snake and says that he will soon become the priest of the tribe and wants to make Ian the first partner. The tigress says in bewilderment that she does not understand the snake's hesitation because great opportunities open up before him. At this time, Lin and Timmy come running. The girl hears the whole conversation and waits for what the snake will answer. Ian hears a noise behind him and turns to see a deer with a leopard. The girl is furious and asks if Ian would have agreed to such a proposal if Lin had not come. The guy replies that of course not. Then Lin says that he doesn't want to see any more hesitation from a married man. Snake realizes that he likes to see Lin display jealousy. She has never shown it before. The goat is simply furious. Again, the deer Lin intervened and disrupted her plans. Sen approaches the couple and says that the first partner will enjoy the same status as the priestess, so will Yen really refuse this opportunity. The snake looks at the doe and asks if she wants to intervene in the situation when they want to take away her male. Lin remembers that according to the plot, the priestess should not be a goat and asks Sen what evidence there is of the awakening of her power. The tigress intervenes in the conversation and proudly declares that the goat can play the bamboo flute. The tigress turns to her friend and invites her to prove everything herself and play the flute. Lin notices that her flute somehow ended up in the goat's hands, and for this reason, Sen doesn't want to play. The deer says that their tribe has long lost its fighting spirit, but if the future priestess plays, it will inspire everyone. All members of the tribe begin to encourage the goat and say that they want to listen to wonderful music. Stumped, the goat proudly declares that she was born with sacred healing powers. Sen strangely presses the flute to his lips and makes eerie sounds that are not at all similar to the melody that Nick heard in the forest. The stunned fellow tribesmen notice that compared to the goat, the old priest played not bad at all. Lin condescendingly says that the flute needs to be played a little differently and extends his hand, asking Sen to give her the flute. Suddenly, the goat throws the tool on the ground and tramples it under her feet. She realizes that she cannot let the deer show her game. The tribesmen are horrified how Sen could do such a thing with a sacred instrument. The goat shouts to Lin that she is a priestess, and it is not for the deer to teach her to do something. The flute is broken, and no one can play it anymore. The deer says that the problem with the flute can be easily solved, and the snake will make a new one. While Ian works, the beastmen discuss that the sacred tool can only be made by a priest. The serpent hands Lin the tool and says that he is not a priest. The doe showed him what to do, so all the credit belongs to her. Deerlin takes the instrument and begins to play a beautiful melody. The residents are enjoying themselves, and Nick understands that this is the melody he heard, which means it was Lin who played in the forest. Timmy reproachfully remarks that the goat Sen wanted to simply steal his sister's position. The girl apologizes once again and says that everything happened by accident, and she admits her guilt. Suddenly, the tigress comes to the goat's defense and declares that it was only thanks to Sen that Lin found her flute, and instead of gratitude, she slandered the girl. Timmy says it looks more like the goat deliberately picked up someone else's item and used it to try to take over Lin and her husband's position. Suddenly, the clan members support the leopard and say that what the goat did was completely unacceptable. Yen turns to Sen and says for the last time that in the entire tribe, there is only one girl who owns his heart, and that is Lin. The snake menacingly continues that if the girl dares to offend the deer again, then, despite the rules of the clan, he will show her all his strength. Realizing that she has completely lost, the goat blames Lin for all her troubles and runs away in tears. Timmy is indignant that the nasty goat, even under the weight of evidence, cannot admit his guilt. The snake hugs Lin and tells the leopard that his concern is not appropriate. Ian can take care of his lady himself. Nick approaches the young people and says that since Lin is a future priestess, he should talk to her. Leo Man watched the whole situation from the side and thinks that since the doe's status is changing so rapidly, he can let her return to him. Nick says that after the death of the old priestess, everyone decided that the god beast was angry with them and would no longer send priestesses. The guy thought that his tribe was doomed, but now he knows that the doe is their last hope. Lin thinks in horror that according to the plot of the novel, the main character should become a priestess, and the girl gets the feeling that she is a thief. Misinterpreting the girl's silence, Nick declares that he will keep everything a secret until Lin officially becomes a priestess. The elder says that after some time they will go to the rock salt tribe and take part in the awakening ritual. Then the girl will meet with the high priests. Lin anxiously thinks that it is along the way to the rock salt tribe that the main character will appear in the novel. The deer approaches her cave, but the self-confident lion Meng is waiting for her at the entrance. Lev states that he is thinking about a partner, and since Lin likes him so much, he is giving her a chance. Meng recalls that once a doe risked bringing a tiger cub to Meng to prove her devotion and was seriously injured in the process. Even the bullying of the tigress and her friends did not diminish Lin's love for the lion. Since the girl endured all the bullying, now Meng gives her a chance and invites her to return to his cave to show herself. Lin throws back the lion's hand and declares that not all women sleep and see how to seduce a young man. The girl furiously wonders what part of his brain the guy has lost if such thoughts come into his head. The stunned lion declares that if the doe misses her chance, she will greatly regret it later. Lin says that it is better to regret the loss of a dog than to regret a person like a lion who was alarmed by the girl's situation. Deer says that Meng is just pathetic because he humiliates weak women in order to feel important. The guy shouts that the deer's mind is completely lost and she doesn't understand what she's talking about. The girl remembers the lion's lifestyle and says that his life is completely meaningless. The guy does not strive for anything. Other men work hard for the good of the tribe, and Mane only spends his time for his own pleasure. The girl leaves and finally says that in front of her is the old lion Meng, and she is not at all the same as she was before. Suddenly, the young man wonders if he really is living something wrong. Mane thinks that he needs to pay more attention to the girl and pamper her. Following the deer, the lion shouts that only he can be the priest's partner. Suddenly, the deer Ed, Lin's younger brother, appears from behind and says that the deer is not the one that Mane needs, and it is better for him to stay away from the girl. Mane looks at the deer in surprise, because he had long ago gone to the old lands in search of the remains of his relatives in order to awaken, and everyone believed that he had died long ago. Leo greets the man and asks why he is so nervous, because he doesn't care about his sister. Ed grimly replies that one way or another, it's not Mane's turn to mock the doe. Deer says that he has broken all ties with his sister and does not want to hear anything more about her. Entering the cave, Lin watches as Ian and Timmy, quite amicably, collect things that will be useful to the girl on the hike. The snake tells the boy not to worry. He will take care of the girl. But the leopard replies with a smile that Ian is too weak for that. The guys start fighting again, but Lin immediately intervenes and orders the fight to stop. Ian affectionately hugs the girl and says that he just helped the boy pack her things into her bag. The snake says that he is glad that they will be together on the hike, and he will be able to keep everything under control. Ed watches the scene in the cave from afar and thinks that it looks like his sister has remained the same as before. Suddenly, a tigress appears behind the deer and says that Lin is behaving very frivolously, seducing all the men in a row. Ed abruptly grabs the tigress by the hand and asks if the tigress wants such a beautiful hand to be broken. The deer furiously says that he does not want to hear a single bad word from the girl about his sister. Ed pushes the tigress hard and orders her to get out of sight. Approaching the cave, Ed asks who these beastmen are next to the deerlin. Ian and Timmy immediately cover the girl and menacingly ask the deer who he is. Lin glares at Ed and tells her companions that this is her brother. Deer gloomily says that he is not her brother because they broke all ties, and from now on he does not want to worry about her anymore. Lin thinks that these words cause her acute melancholy, and the desire to cry becomes more and more uncontrollable. The girl's inner voice says that it shouldn't be like this. She and her brother should be the closest relatives. Ed sadly says that as a child, Lin was his favorite sister, but as she grew up, she changed a lot. Ed remembers how his sister became more and more arrogant and unfamiliar. At times, it seemed to the young man that she had become a different person. Suddenly, Timmy steps forward and furiously says that the guy knows nothing about his sister and has no right to say so. Suddenly, Baby 2 appears in Lin's head and happily greets his owner. Timmy shouts that you can't be so cruel and break ties with your relatives. Ed coldly replies that he's not talking to him. The deer suddenly attacks the boy and wants to teach him a lesson for his impudence. Lin demands Ed to stop. The girl is so tired of all this showdown. She takes off the amulet, hands it to her brother, and says that if he wants to break off relations with her, then she agrees. Ed stares at the amulet, and Lin says that from now on she is no longer his sister, and the guy is not her family. Ed recalls that the father begged these amulets from the god beast especially for his children. From that moment on, the children had to support each other and be the closest people. The young man clutches the amulet to himself and thinks that this is not what he wanted to get. Lin walks confusedly through the forest, but suddenly trips over a stone and begins to fall. Ian holds his friend, and she, with tears in her eyes, says that she did what she could, but she can't help but be sad. The young man carefully wipes the deer's tears and asks her not to be sad, because she has him. The snake pulls the girl towards him and says that under any circumstances he will never leave her. Ian kisses the doe on the forehead, and at this time the girl notices Little too, and out of surprise, pushes the guy away with her hand. Ian doesn't understand what happened and asks the doe about it, but she says that everything is fine. Stepping aside, Lin asks Tu why he appeared so suddenly. Tu thinks upset that the mistress has not yet realized that she was once a member of the world of animals, but the time has not yet come to tell her about it. And Tu happily says that he found something interesting. Young people approach a cave in which many snakes live. Ian takes the girl in his arms and asks if she is sure that this is the place she was looking for. The couple goes deep into the cave, and Lin sees the magic flower that Little Tu spoke about. In addition, according to the scanner, there should also be a magic stone of the god of beasts in the cave. The deer examines the flower, not noticing that a huge snake appears behind them. Lin is delighted that she has found a magic medicine that can cure any disease. Suddenly, Ian notices a snake ready to attack and pushes the doe aside. The guy tries to attack the snake, delivering one of his most powerful blows. But suddenly, the snake quickly twists around the young man and squeezes its coils. Ian realizes that he is caught. The guy is deprived of the ability to move and defend himself. The snake bites him in the hand. Little Tu shouts to Lin, getting Lin's attention, and throws a sharp wooden stake at her. The deer catches the weapon and with a powerful blow plunges a stake into the snake's body, piercing it right through. Enraged, the snake rises above the doe and opens its mouth wide, preparing to deliver a fatal bite. Ian runs up to the girl and, taking advantage of the fact that the snake does not see him, attacks first. The exhausted snake falls to the ground, leaning against the wall. Lin runs up to the guy in alarm. Losing strength, Ian says that it is too dangerous here. The deer needs to leave him and leave. The girl doesn't let the guy finish, stuffs a flower into his mouth and says that's enough talking. Ian says it's too wasteful to waste magic medicine on him. She should save it for when she becomes a priestess. Lin, confused, asks what she should do if the guy dies. She admits that if she can't save him, then nothing else matters. Ian wants to kiss the girl, but suddenly freezes and says in horror that he is returning to his ancestors. Suddenly, the young man's legs begin to turn into a huge snake tail. The guy explains that bringing beastmen back to life often awakens their bestial nature. The deer is frightened, but remembers that the god's stone can suppress reincarnation. Lin is afraid that in his bestial form, Ian will lose control of himself and simply kill the girl. The deer tries to crawl to the side to look for the magic stone, but Ian grabs her leg. The snake gently hugs the girl to him, but suddenly Lin begins to cry. Ian asks if the girl is crying because of his transformation. Suddenly, the snake throws its long tail over its shoulder and crawls towards the exit of the cave. The guy says that he doesn't want to hurt Lin. He will go outside, calm down, and when he returns, the period of transformation will come to an end. Although Lin is scared, she understands that something needs to be done. Otherwise, it will be impossible to stop the process. The deer approaches the snake and says that she knows a way to stop the reincarnation. The guy breaks the ground with his fist in order, as Lin said, to find a magic stone. Rubbing her hand, Ian asks if Lin is sure that the stone is hidden there. The deer looks into the hole and sees some strange glow at the very bottom. Lin happily tells the snake that the stone is at the very bottom, and he needs to get it out as quickly as possible. Ian doubts that anything magical can be found in this pile of stones, but he dutifully sorts the stones and suddenly discovers what he was looking for. The serpent takes out the stone and thinks that the stone of the god of beasts is capable of increasing the strength of a warrior. Even just holding the stone in his hands, one feels the thirst for power. But then the young man's mood drops. He notices that there is only one stone. Yen decisively gives Lin the stone and invites her to absorb the energy of the god of beasts herself. The snake says that the girl will become a priestess, and she simply needs strength. Little Tu intervenes and says that with such power, the girl will quickly become the strongest priestess, and she will no longer have to fear the appearance of the main character. Lin suspiciously asks why Tu wants her to become a priestess and take what belongs to the main character. The deer understands that as soon as she appeared in this world, the snake was always there and protected her, so Lin resolutely hands him the stone. Tu tries with all her might to dissuade the hostess, but the girl replies that if the assistant does not tell her about the true reasons, then she is confident in her decision. Lin tells Ian that she will become a priestess through her own efforts, and at the moment, the snake needs the stone more. The young man clings to the deer and says that he will do as she wants. Ian absorbs the power of the stone, and before his eyes, all his bruises and wounds begin to disappear. Suddenly, a white light appears around, and the young man's body takes on its original human form. Snake picks up Lin and says that he is now a level 5 warrior. Ian hands the doe a cloak and says that it is a veil of water cloud that he shed after his promotion. Little Tu explains that this is the skin that the snake shed, and it has very valuable and useful qualities. Ian hugs Lin and admits that she is his life, and he loves her endlessly. Nick reports that traps have been set around the clan, and everyone needs to bring as many things as possible for exchange. Suddenly, Ian comes into the clearing, carrying Lin in his arms. The young elder looks in surprise at the sparkling veil on the serpent's shoulder. Nick realizes that Ian is now a 5th-rank warrior, and the tribe now has a chance to challenge the other larger tribes. The guy happily announces that they are setting off early tomorrow morning. Maine realizes with envy that Ian was able to break through above the 4th level and is now stronger than the lion. Leo is sure that the doe, as a future priestess, has the ability to promote the beast people, and it was she who helped the snake. The young man thinks that if he can get the girl's love, he can also advance in power. Late at night, the lion Meng tries to sneak into Lin's cave unnoticed, but Ed is watching his actions. Hearing a rustle in the bushes behind him, the lion spins a magical bolt of lightning. Lightning wounds the deer, but he menacingly asks why the lion is climbing into the girl's cave. Meng knows that the deer has not awakened the warrior in him, so he smirks completely fearlessly, saying that it is none of his business. Maine attacks Ed and says that his sister will no longer take care of him because they broke off their relationship. The guy, continuing to beat him, declares that instead of helping her brother, the girl increased the strength of her snake. Suddenly, the deer breaks out and hits Man in the face with all his might, declaring that the girl is nothing to him and he will not protect her. Attracted by the noise, Lin emerges from the cave and observes this disgusting scene. The girl is very upset by her brother's words that she is nothing to him. Ed begins to explain that he didn't mean that he broke ties, but wants to help her, or didn't break ties, but doesn't want to help. The deer realizes that he is completely confused and that he has completely ruined everything. Lin laughs, showing such awkwardness. Ed does not look at all like an indifferent brother. Rather, he looks like his old self. Before leaving the cave, the snake said that he had not spent all the energy of the stone, and it could still awaken the warrior from the beastmen. Ian offered to give the stone to Ed, and thus try to improve their relationship. The snake is sure that his brother did not want to break ties, and he cannot stop worrying about the girl. Lin hands the stone to Ed, and says that he knows about his brother's desires to become a warrior, and this will help him. Lion Meng happily realizes that it was the stone that helped the snake increase its level. The guy grabs the doe's hand and asks with a grin if she has forgotten about her promise to give him all her best resources. Ed comes between the young people. Even if Lin loves the lion, he can't allow her to be used like this. The brother gives the doe a stone and tells her to keep it with her because the weak doe will need protection when she leaves the tribe. The girl was sincerely touched by her brother's concern, but at the same time, he did not want to accept her help. With his head down, Lin leaves, and Ed, in despair, thinks that he has offended his sister in some way. Following the deer, Meng tells him to mind his own business, since he himself broke ties. Now he must reap the benefits. The elder prepares to depart, tells everyone to be on guard. They will return in 10 days. Ed looks sadly at the amulet. Timmy comes up and asks why Ed is still sad when he looks at Lin's amulet. The deer knows that the leopard is good at making his sister laugh and asks what he should do to try to improve his relationship with her. The boy says that they are family, relatives to each other, and if the brother sincerely apologizes, then Lin will not reject him. Timmy runs off to Lynn and Ian, leaving Ed to ponder his words. The whole tribe comes out to say goodbye to the departing people, asking them to take care of themselves and come back as soon as possible. Lynn does not understand why so many people are needed to exchange salt. Tu explains that every spring there is a warrior awakening ceremony, which is why so many young people go. Tu says that tribes without a priest are very weak, so the deer should become one as quickly as possible. This will elevate her and help the tribe. Suddenly, a girl runs out of the forest towards the soldiers and begs for help. A wounded young girl reports that beastmen are chasing her and asks for help. Lynn looks at the girl in fascination, realizes that the events are very familiar to her, and that in front of her is the main character of the novel.